Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 507 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, not really asked you to agree with me, I'm asked you to hear me out. I want to start this episode by shouting out Cam Newton. Cam Newton and everyone on the 4th and 1 podcast and 4th and 1 network, shout out to you guys. Cam Newton and on the 4th and 1, which is his obviously platform, was talking about the clip of Gilly and Wallow going on the Paul George podcast, and was essentially, as we know Gilly and Wallow to do, was going at Paul George about the Philadelphia 76ers shortcomings this year and Paul George missing more games than he played. And Cam Newton was essentially giving us the perspective of the athlete. We know that Cam Newton is an athlete. We know that Cam Newton, what he did at Auburn, what he did in the NFL. He was giving us a perspective of an athlete when they're going through, injuries and going through not living up to expectations. And how there's a different scope when you have fans compared to when you're the athlete. Now, bringing it back to here, I've never been in the NBA. I've never been close to the NBA. I played college. The closest I've ever been is played college basketball. I played NAIA, Voorhees College. It's Voorhees University now. Shout out to them. That's the closest I've ever been to playing in the NBA. So I don't know how it is to be on the same level as an NBA player. I'm closer to the fan than I am the athlete. And that's essentially what Cam Newton was talking about. He was saying how fans have sort of a skewed, entitled viewpoint on things when they really shouldn't. When I look at this and talk about Karl Anthony Towns, people can say that I am harsh. And I think there is some truth to that. Now, again, I've never been in the NBA. I've never been close to the NBA. I'm not close to being as talented as an NBA player, let alone as close to being as talented as Karl Anthony Towns. But I feel my point of view mirrors that of a lot of other people. And I got that glimpse after game, was it 5? When when the New York Knicks beat the Indiana Pacers to force a game 6. And Charles Barkley, who is an NBA Hall of Famer, who was an incredible NBA player, asked Karl Anthony Towns a simple question: why do you continue to commit stupid fouls? And Karl Anthony Towns pretty much goes, "Hey man, I don't even know." That's not what he said, but I'm paraphrasing. He said, "I don't know, man." I think what's frustrating to me when I watch this series, and in particular when I watch Karl Anthony Towns, the Karl Anthony Towns this series would be completely different if we got the Karl Anthony Towns that we got in game, was it 3 or 4, when he scored 20 points in the fourth quarter, and the Karl Anthony Towns that we got in game 5, when he was essentially the driving engine for most of the game. I know Jalen Brunson had a pretty good game, but Karl Anthony Towns was on one, even through injury, because apparently he's playing through a knee injury. He was arguably the best player on the floor. I don't think it is irrational to look at a player and look at a player as good as Karl Anthony Towns is and say to yourself, he should be better. We're going to talk about last year a little bit, but this is the same issue I had when he was in Minnesota. I don't know why I don't know. But it is clear throughout this series, even with the New York Knicks down 3-2, it is clear that Karl Anthony Towns is by far the most unstoppable player in this series. That's even over Tyrese Halliburton. That's even over Jalen Brunson. Karl Anthony Towns is the most unstoppable player in this series. In fact, I'll even take that back. The only person that can stop Karl Anthony Towns in this series has been and is Karl Anthony Towns. Whether he's not being aggressive, whether he's, deferring too much. I'm not saying that you don't let Jalen Brunson do his thing, but what I'm saying is this. The series would look much different if Karl Anthony Towns was much more aggressive from game to game. I said that the winner of game 4, I believe, was going to win the series. And that was the Indiana Pacers. I think Tyrese Halliburton became the first player ever to have a 30-point triple-double with no assist or no turnovers, and he had like 15 assists. Tyrese Halliburton is cold, man. But again, game 4 or game 3, they were up 20, the Pacers were, and Karl Anthony Towns scores 20 points in the fourth quarter. He was a force to be reckoned with in game 5. And it's a lot that goes into it, meaning it is the dumb fouls that I say a lot on this podcast that Charles Barkley said. He commits dumb fouls and puts himself in foul trouble. He takes dumb shots. Like you'll have the momentum, all of a sudden he'll pull a damn near half court 3. I don't know. The thing that frustrates me most is I see how good Karl Anthony Towns is. The man has a 60-plus point game in the NBA. He is one of, if not the greatest big man shooter ever. I think it's essentially between him and Dirk Nowitzki. But all of that praise, all of that skill set doesn't necessarily translate to the game every time. Which kind of goes to the whole star versus superstar conversation. And how I said that it is a very thin difference between a star and a superstar. I wholeheartedly believe that. I think that the main difference between a star and a superstar is you know what you're getting from a superstar. Yeah, a superstar can have a bad game. There have been games where Steph Curry goes 0 for 10. There's been games where LeBron James will score 15 points or 10 points. But you are expecting greatness from them. A star has that greatness quality to it, has that greatness in him. You just don't know what you're going to expect. You can get a game where you'll score 20 points in the fourth quarter. Then you'll get a game where you're like, oh, shoot, he had 4 points? And now that I'm really thinking about it, I can't remember a bucket. That's my issue with Karl Anthony Towns. He has superstar talent. The way that we talk about Joel Embiid, who is an MVP, the way that we talk about Anthony Davis when he's healthy, Karl Anthony Towns has that skill set. But you just never know what you're going to get. Now, I didn't want to come into this episode hot. I didn't want to just kill Karl Anthony Towns. This is me imploring him to be the star that he is. Because again, I feel like if we got that Karl Anthony Towns consistently, this series would look much different. But the thing is, Karl Anthony Towns has been in the league long enough that this is what we're getting. We have enough evidence from Minnesota. We have enough evidence from now the Knicks that this is there's no changing Karl Anthony Towns, which is why I don't think he will ever be on that superstar level. And I don't think that I wouldn't be shocked if game 7 or game 6, he has a dud. He gets outplayed by someone like Miles Turner, who's really good, but if we talk about skill set, shouldn't be in the same conversation as Karl Anthony Towns. But if we talk about motor, if we talk about, the oomph, Karl Anthony Towns, you never know what you're going to get. So I started this off by talking about Cam Newton because, again, I know I'm just a fan. I play intramurals at work. I played college basketball. I wasn't the best on my team. I'm not going to lie. So I'm never going to know how it feels to be the best player on a team. I'm never going to know how it feels to play in front of 100,000, 50, 60,000 people. But I do know I watch a lot of basketball. Basketball is my favorite sport. I watch a lot of it. And I watch a lot of Karl Anthony Towns. And I know how good he can be. I know how good he is. I just also understand that there's not many people that can really stop Karl Anthony Towns when he's locked in, when he's dialed in. But in the same breath, you don't know what Karl Anthony Towns you're going to get. And Charles Barkley asking him why you take dumb fouls just cemented what I watch on a daily basis with Karl Anthony Towns. I'm not blaming. If they could ultimately win, I have the Pacers winning in game 6. I'm not necessarily only blaming Karl Anthony Towns for this loss, if they lose the series. But what I will say is if you got a dialed in Karl Anthony Towns the entirety of the series, I believe it will look much different than what we're looking at. But we'll see. I could be very much wrong. They could win game 6 and then go to game 7 in New York and win. Who knows? I don't see that happening. I also wanted to, I forgot his name, bro. I forgot his name. There's a guy, he's an older guy on TikTok, and he has like basketball takes. He's on a podcast that I only see clips on TikTok, but he had a really good take that I want to talk about. Before I move on, I just thought about it. Again, if I remember, I don't know his name, but if I see him a lot on social media, and he has some really interesting takes. He is an older fella. He also did it was like 1 versus 500, and he was talking about how Magic Johnson or the old school is better than the new school basketball or something like that. Again, I'm sorry I don't remember your name, bro, but you brought up a topic that I wanted to talk about before I move on. And he was talking about the New York Knicks as a whole. And people were confused about how the Knicks were able to beat someone like the Boston Celtics, but are struggling to beat the Pacers. And I kind of wanted to give credit to what he said because I wholeheartedly agree with what he says, but I kind of wanted to go further. He was saying that there are some teams that are built to beat a specific team, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're built to win it all. And I'm going to give a little bit more credence to that. Obviously, we'll never know. But that Houston Rockets team that had Chris Paul, that had James Harden, that had Trevor Ariza, that had Clint Capella, that had PJ Tucker, that team was solely built to beat the Golden State Warriors at the time that had Steph, Clay, KD, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala. That Rockets team was built to beat the Golden State Warriors. Now, yes, the Golden State Warriors was the best team at the time. They were a dynasty. They had Kevin Durant. They were just coming off a championship. That was the goal. The goal, there were a lot of teams that were just like, we're going to wait this out because there's just we have no shot of beating this Warriors team, and understandably so. The feats, I will go down as saying that was one of, if not the greatest team we've ever seen. The 2016-17 Warriors, the first year KD was there. They were just unstoppable. They lost one game in the playoffs. One game. Now, that 2017-18, that is the one I'm talking about when we talk about the Houston Rockets. That team was solely based and solely built to beat that Golden State Warriors team, which is why you saw when they played each other in the Western Conference Finals, it went to 7 games. With a healthy KD, everyone healthy, it was just, they were built to beat that game, that team. Now, I don't know if the Cleveland Cavaliers team that obviously met the Golden State Warriors in the finals, I don't know if that team would have beat the Houston Rockets. Not because of the Houston Rockets, but because that was a weak team. That was probably the best LeBron James you've ever seen, because he was carrying a team that had absolutely no business in being in the NBA Finals. He carried them there. But what I'm saying is this. Obviously, it's hypothetical. But I believe that Houston Rockets team would have struggled with that Cavaliers team because it wasn't built to beat and win a championship. It was built to beat the Golden State Warriors. When this team, this New York Knicks team was constructed, they had their eyes solely on the Boston Celtics. And you can tell by the personnel that they have. OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, long, lanky defenders that can stop someone like a Jason Tatum, who was a long, lanky offensive player. Someone that can stop and slow down a driving player like a Jaylen Brown. You have OG Anunoby. You have Josh Hart. Someone that can go toe-to-toe with a Kristaps Porzingis, Karl Anthony Towns. And then you have Jrue Holiday. You have Jalen Brunson. This Knicks team was built solely on stopping the Boston Celtics. Now, I do think that fully healthy, they probably would not have beat the Boston Celtics, in my opinion, but they did win. So you're seeing, okay, they matched up better. Even though they struggled in the regular season, I've been very open about that. They match up perfectly with the Boston Celtics because that's how they built their team. But then when you look and you see them struggling with the Pacers, they weren't built to win the championship. They were built to beat the Celtics. Meaning they're not equipped to handle a different offense than the Celtics. Meaning they didn't build this team to be, on a track meet. They didn't build this team to have to deal with teams that aren't necessarily looking for the three-point shot. They were built to beat the Celtics. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the Celtics and Pacers play completely different. The Pacers is just a track meet. The Celtics, they want to shoot threes. That's why they put up historical numbers from three this year. Now, again, I believe that the Boston Celtics would have probably beat the Knicks if they were fully healthy. But that's not what happened. But I also understand, and shouts out to to homie again. I don't remember, I don't know his name, but I see him a lot on TikTok when we talk about these basketball takes. He said it perfectly. This Knicks team was not built to win a championship, and I wholeheartedly believe him. This Knicks team was built to beat the Boston Celtics, and I feel that they thought once they dethrone the champions, they're going to coast, but nah. Now you're dealing with a team that in a lot of people's eyes, you should be better than because you beat someone like the Celtics. No, you were able to you built this team to beat the style that the Celtics have. This Pacers team is much different styles wise. And you see that they're currently down 3-2. I feel like I'm going to move forward. We hear this a lot. The word dynasty gets thrown around a lot. I talked about this last year. I feel like I talk about this every year, but the word dynasty gets thrown around a lot. Us as fans, because obviously winning dictates a lot, but titles are beautiful and titles help the novice understand things. That's why you have positions in basketball. So it helps someone that may not understand what basketball is pinpoint and look, oh, that's the point guard. Oh, that's the shooting guard. Oh, that's the center. That's what positions, the title of positions were made for. The word dynasty gets thrown around a lot because as much as people love parity, or as much as people say that they love parity, they love dynasties more. They love when a team is dominant. You can say, "Oh, we hate Alabama. Oh, we hate the New York Knicks or the New York Yankees. Oh, we hate the Lakers. We hate the." There's more people that love dominance than people that love parity. And what you're hearing a lot when we talk about this Oklahoma City Thunder team is, oh, this is the next dynasty. This is the next dynasty. They have all the ingredients to be the next dynasty. While I will say slow down, because ultimately they have to win it all. They have to at least win this year. We'll see. I think that they have all the capabilities to win this year. They are the first team, obviously, to make it to the NBA Finals. We're waiting on the Knicks and Pacers, but they beat the Timberwolves in 5 games. I do agree with they have the components that a dynasty needs. But I do want to slow down on that because basketball is an interesting thing, you know. Because you know who else had the components to be a dynasty? The Denver Nuggets. And they didn't win back-to-back. You know who else had the components to be a dynasty? The Boston Celtics. And they're at home right now. I will admit, and I will say this. The one thing that the Boston Celtics, that the Denver Nuggets, the one thing that those teams, the Milwaukee Bucks, remember them? The one thing that those teams don't have that the Thunder do is an abundance of youth. Yeah, Giannis was younger. Yeah, Nikola Jokic, he's not old. Jamal Murray, he's not old. Yeah, the Boston Celtics aren't old as far as their stars. Jason Tatum's not old. Jaylen Brown's not old. But when we talk about the totality of those teams, when we talk about the Milwaukee Bucks, when we talk about the Boston Celtics, when we talk about the Denver Nuggets, they're nowhere close to the age. The oldest player on the OKC Thunder is Alex Caruso, I believe, and he's 31. I want to I don't want to crown, let me say that. I don't want to crown this team as a dynasty. They obviously have to win it all. But they have the components to be considered a dynasty. They have that player. They have an all-time player. Or let me say, they have a superstar player. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They have the perfect supporting cast. They have a cheap supporting cast. They have draft picks that they can use to trades, and they hit on the draft all the time. And on top of that, the one thing that they have that a lot of these other teams that we thought were going to be dynasties don't have is youth. This is one of, if not, this is for sure the youngest team that has ever made it to an NBA Finals. And if they do win, they will be the youngest to ever win. They also, I think, have won the third most games in a season. I think behind the Golden State Warrior 2014, 15, or 16, 17 Golden State Warriors, and one of the 73-10 or 72-10 Bulls. They are a juggernaut. Defensively, offensive, they are a juggernaut. I want to hold off on calling them a dynasty, even though it's just, oh man, it's another thing that is different between them and, let's say, the Boston Celtics. Now, when I say this, I know there's going to be somebody in my comments. First of all, I appreciate you watching and listening. They're going to be like, "But Jay, in the beginning of this playoffs, you said that there was not a team that can beat the Celtics in 4 games, including this Oklahoma City Thunder team." And I stand by what I said. I think that when you shoot the ball as prolifically as that Celtics team did this year, and you play solid defense, like I don't know. But they don't have to. But one thing that the difference, I'll say, outside of age and outside of having that, Jason Tatum is tough. People just don't like him. The biggest difference is how these teams go about scoring. And we saw that with we saw that in the Knicks Celtics series. The Celtics rely almost only on threes. This Thunder team, they want to get to the rim as much as possible, and if the three is open, they'll take it. And on top of that, the youth makes this conversation a thing, in my opinion. Again, they are the youngest team to ever make the NBA Finals. That's saying something. Now, I will say that the competition is different. Like, you have, I think this is the most talented the league has ever been when we talk about individual players and teams all together. So, and you never know what's going to happen. Like, if Giannis gets traded to, I don't know, let's say the Lakers, or if they get traded to someone like the Golden State Warriors, and that changes everything. But I will say that I'm not going to call them a dynasty, because they essentially, if they don't win it this year, they haven't done anything. I think that they're in good standings to win it. But they have to win it. So I'm not going to call them a dynasty. In fact, I think I'm going to wait until you win 2. If you go back to back, then we can start having that dynasty conversation. But what I will say is this. If you want to look at all the dynasties back in the day, the Celtics dynasties, the Bulls, the Lakers, the Golden State Warrior. If you want to look at past dynasties, this Thunder team mirrors a lot of things that made those teams what they were. Now, again, I'm going to wait until they win 2. They have to win 1 first, obviously, but we'll shelf that. We'll see. Speaking of we'll see, man, I want to talk about this Minnesota Timberwolves team. Because there's a level of disappointment when I talk about this team. It's not the fact that they lost. I feel like they lost to a better team. And I honestly think that this team was more flawed than last year's team. I mean, I obviously will never know, but I do think that this team probably would have lost to Golden State if Steph was healthy for the entire thing. So this team is flawed. But I think the disappointment comes when we talk about the fact of last year. I'll say it like this. They're obviously good. Making it to 2 straight Western Conference championships, you're a good team. Obviously, they have a player in Anthony Edwards that they can move forward with and feel confident that their championship window is open because he's one of those players. Maybe not right now, but he's close to being one of those players. He's obviously good enough to lead a team to 2 Western Conference championships. Or Western Conference Finals appearances, I'm sorry, because he didn't win. But there is an issue with this team that I think continues or reared its ugly head yet again this year that has prevented them from reaching their goals. Now, yes, I will admit that even if they played to the best of their ability, I do not believe they would have beat this Thunder team. But this is the second year in a row where in a closeout game, they got embarrassed. Last year against the Dallas Mavericks, they lost by 24 points. Or 21 points, I'm sorry. And the game was out of hand. Probably in the second quarter, actually, in the first quarter. And just like last year, this year they got destroyed by the Oklahoma City Thunder. And this game was over in the first 5 minutes. I think it was like 22-3. Now, you can't blame Julius Randle, even though I think as much praise as I gave him, he had such a disappointing series, to say the least. Because it's not like you were needed, brother. Like you were very, very important to this. And the fact that let me see what he did that last game. Oh, excuse me. That last game, Julius Randle, because Julius Randle was on a mean streak he had 24. So Julius Randle was either having an incredible game or he was just absolutely terrible. That's just how it was. But you can't blame Julius Randle for last year because they didn't have Julius Randle. They had Karl Anthony Towns. I'm trying to understand and figure out what it is. Because you can say, well, you have Mike Conley, who's like 38 years old, playing starting point guard. Makes sense. But even last year, they were one of, if not the best defensive team in basketball. Until they played up against a team that they should have beat in the Dallas Mavericks. And then they just go out sad, bro. This year they lost by 30. The last game of the season, they lost the last game of their season. They lost 124-94. They scored 9 points in the first quarter to OKC's 26. OKC scored 39 points in the second quarter. This is what I talk about. I talk about this in football. I talk about this in basketball. You have to capitalize on these moments. I have gone out and said that I think Anthony Edwards will one day win an MVP. I have all the faith in the world that Anthony Edwards will emerge as one of the best players in basketball. And I'm not blaming this on him, but what I'm saying is it's crazy how this season and last season ended eerily similar. Getting blown off the floor in game 5. And I think that is going to be the next evolution, the next process of Anthony Edwards' game. Because I'm not saying you got to beat like yourself, but there has to be something in you to be like, nah, I can't let us go out like that. And Anthony Edwards, I apologize. Anthony Edwards took 18 shots. And played 18 shots, 3 turnovers, 2 assists. It felt like this is the second year in a row where it felt like it was inevitable. Like, not inevitable, but this is the second year in a row where the game of your life, the game, you're always as big. You're as big as your last game, and this is the last game that hopefully can extend your season. And the Timberwolves go out sad. Again, I think Oklahoma City is a better team than them, but not 30 points better. Even though I do think that the Minnesota Timberwolves was flawed because they weren't nearly as good defensively this year than they were last year. They weren't nearly as good offensively this year, even though Anthony Edwards was the 3-point champion this year. That's why, again, and I don't think I finished the point. That's why I said you have to cherish those windows. Because Anthony Edwards goes, I feel bad for someone like Mike Conley because I want to win this for him because you never know how many years he has left. Correct. But and also go as great as Anthony Edwards is and as young as he is, you never know. Because again, you got Luka on the Lakers. You have Victor Wembanyama and Stefan Castle on the Spurs, along with De'Aaron Fox. You also have the Nuggets. They're not going anywhere. We'll see what happens with the Golden State Warriors. We'll see what happens with Giannis. Obviously, you have the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll see what happens with John Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. We'll see what happens with Zion Williamson and and the Pelicans. It's unfortunate that a team that is led by someone as good and as fiery as Anthony Edwards 2 years in a row go out sad. Now, I do think they need to improve and get a actual point guard. I don't think Anthony Edwards is I think his best get off the ball, allow someone to operate with the ball. And as great as Mike Conley is, he's about to be 39. And he's not LeBron. So I do think they need to improve there. And they also have to realize, because this continued to happen throughout the series, this year and last year, Rudy Gobert is a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. He didn't get 4-time Defensive Player of the Year because he is a great on-ball defender. He got Defensive Player of the Year 4 times because he is a exceptional rim protector. So when you see Rudy Gobert get switched out on a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, or last year get switched out on a Luka Doncic, you're not looking at, okay, we should be good because he's a 4-time defensive player. You're looking at somebody that, oh shoot, he is out of his element. It's just so there's so many times they allowed a guard to switch and bring Rudy Gobert out the paint, which just, he was getting torched. And on top of that, this is yet another year where I think the Timberwolves run, I don't know, offensively, it feels like they run a lot of just one-on-ones. It's either here, Julius Randle, you take it, or here, Anthony Edwards, you take it. This is yet another year. Again, I'm not saying you had to beat the Thunder. I didn't think you were going to beat the Thunder. But this is yet another year where you lose by 20 or more points in the last game. Bro, they lost by 30. They lost by 21 to the Dallas Mavericks, who, might I add, only won one game in the NBA Finals that year. So there is a disconnect that I think the Minnesota Timberwolves have to overcome, because they're a good team, but obviously they're not a great team. Even with Anthony Edwards, even with Julius Randle, they're not a great team. And it takes a great team to get over the hump in the Western Conference. And it's not the fact that they lost. It's the fact of when you're going up against a great team and you have a chance to extend your season, you lose by 21 points and 30 points. And your best player, your two best players combined for 32 shots. Just saying. But congratulations on making it to your second straight Western Conference Finals. Let's move off of basketball for a second, because I'm going to wait, obviously, until next episode to see what happens with the Knicks and Pacers series, and I'm going to give a breakdown and prediction of the NBA Finals and who I think will win and all that. But I'm going to wait until the Eastern Conference Finals is over. I want to talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs for a second, and how we're getting a repeat of what we had last year. Last year, the Edmonton Oilers, Jesus Christ, faced the Florida Panthers, and Florida beat them in 7 games. This year, we have the Edmonton Oilers going up against the Florida Panthers in the rematch. Now, there are some great names in this series. You have Connor McDavid. You have Dry Saddle. There are some names in this series, obviously. Kachuk. Most of the Panthers team that won it last year is back for this season. But I think the difference is the goalie play for the Edmonton Oilers. Both of these teams are almost similar to what they were last year. Outside of, I think Edmonton did get a couple players this offseason, and they've been pretty important when we talk about scoring. They've been pretty important, attacking the net. They've been good. They've been one of the best scoring teams. Once they started picking things up, they've been one of the best scoring teams in the NHL. And the Florida Panthers, it feels like they are just the most physical team we've ever seen. On top of that, what they did to the Hurricanes. Now, yes, I understand the Hurricanes had a lengthy losing streak. I don't think they won a game in the Stanley Cup Eastern Conference Finals or whatever since 2006. They getting destroyed, but they did win a game. I will give that. But the Panthers, they just put it on you. Pause. They are just they attack the net with aggression and with ferocity. They do not stop, and it's like their entire team they just throw everything at you. They're fast. They're physical. They throw everything at you. So when you hear that, you probably think to yourself, well, of course, the Panthers, they've lost 5 games this entire playoffs. They lost once to the Lightning. It was a 7-game series to the Maple Leafs, and they lost 1 game to the Hurricanes. On top of that, the Edmonton Oilers they beat the Kings 4-2, they beat the Golden Knights 4-1, and they beat the Stars 4-1. The X factor of this series is going to be Skinner. For people that don't know who that is the goalie for the Edmonton Oilers. As great of scoring as they have, again, they have arguably one of the best players of all time in Connor McDavid. They have as great as they are scoring, I don't think they will be able to keep up with the Florida Panthers if Skinner cannot stop Florida. Which is what we saw last year. I know it was a 7-game series, but a lot of those games, Edmonton was down big early. And they had to fight and claw back because they just did not have goalie play. Now, I don't think that their goalie is the greatest, but I think he's much improved from last year. And because of that, and because, they're both, the Panthers and the Oilers, they're just juggernauts right now. I'm going to go with the Edmonton Oilers. I picked them last year, and I was drastically wrong. But I think Skinner being better this year, and, they've been great. Both these teams have been great, obviously, but I think that Connor McDavid is playing at a different level, and Skinner is playing at a much better level than last year. And if this is Florida, I'm going to go with the Edmonton Oilers. They have the best player in the series, and their goalie is much better from last year, even though he still has those games. There's a bunch of games where they had to come back. Like, they were down. What is that game? That game, they were up 3-0 against the Stars and lost 6-3. Like, now, that is just one game, and throughout this playoffs, he's been great, the goalie for the Skinner. But he's going to have to come correct this because you're going up against a Florida team that is aggressive. I will say that. But I am predicting that the Edmonton Oilers are going to win the Stanley Cup Finals in 7 games. So we'll see. But this has been an exciting Stanley Cup playoffs outside of, my Capitals getting bounced out the second round by the Hurricanes 4-1, and then the Hurricanes just getting absolutely dog-walked by the Panthers in the finals, or the Eastern Conference Finals. But it's been a good series. I think a lot of people predicted either the Stars, the Golden Knights, or the Hurricanes to win it all, and neither one of them made it to the finals. So it's going to be interesting, but we'll see. Let's talk about decisions. No. I want to, before we talk about decisions, I want to talk about Caleb Williams for a second. Let's go over to the football aspect of this, and I'll make these next few topics quick. If anybody knows what's been going on with Caleb Williams and the Bears this offseason, I don't remember homie's name, but he pretty much published a book, and he was detailing Caleb Williams and before the draft, how he was adamant that he didn't want to go to the Bears. He wanted to go to the Vikings, and he was trying, him and his father, Caleb Williams' father, were trying to orchestrate a way that they do not get drafted to the Bears. Obviously, that was all for naught, because the Bears said, I don't care what you want, my guy, you're getting drafted number 1. That came out, didn't look good and obviously we know about some of the immaturities and some of the things that happened with Caleb Williams when he was at USC, when he was at Oklahoma, as far as some of the immaturities. He's always been a great player, obviously good enough to be number 1, but he had some issues. Well, he had a press conference, I think the beginning of OTAs, because OTAs start. And I want to remind you what OTA stands for, because I'm already hearing a bunch of people. OTA stands for optional training. This optional. The O is optional. But he shows up to OTAs and he has like damn near 4-minute press conference, or he has a press conference in for 4 straight minutes essentially. He never denied what the report said about, him not wanting to go to the Bears. But he did say, I want to be a Bear and I want to be a 4,000-yard passer, because the Bears do not have a 4,000-yard passer in the history of their franchise. And some, when I watched that, I was just thinking to myself, it has to be easier than this. This can't be what you were advised to do. I'm not saying that you don't address it, right? I'm not saying that you don't. If it's true, it's true. If it's not, it's not. I'm not saying that you don't say anything. But here's all he had to say. Obviously, you guys read the report, read the article. I'm not going to disclose if it's true or not, but what I will say is I am happy to be a Bear. I want to be in Chicago. I want to bring glory to this franchise. And me and my teammates are looking forward to this season. That is all he had to say. You see how that wasn't 4 minutes? You see how that wasn't it's become a distraction. He kept that's exactly obviously over there in Minnesota, they have a great coaching staff. I mean, they just, Kevin O'Connell just won Coach of the Year. But it's that report. You guys have obviously read it. It's been a distraction. It is true that this franchise has never had a bro. Shout out to Dominique Foxworth. He pretty much said, "Yo, that press conference is a prime example of how Caleb Williams plays. Just throw the play away, even if you want to admit it." I will admit that before the season, or before my draft, I had some feelings about coming to the Chicago Bears. However, I am here now. I love Chicago. I love this organization. I want to be the player I want to be that first 4,000-yard passer, and I want to bring glory to this organization. I'm here now. I'm excited to be here. I'm happy to be here, and we are looking forward to this season. Again, that is all you had to say. How is that difficult? Look, I'm not going to answer any more questions. Again, I am happy to be here, and I'm excited. This organization, me and this organization, we are excited about the season and excited to show what we bring to the that's all you had to say. Why was that such a difficult press con? It was awkward and it was cringy to watch, because it's like, bro, what? Again, I'm not saying you have to confirm nor deny the report, but you never really, and damn near, I think it was 3 minutes and 50 something seconds, you did not say anything of merit. And shouts out again to Dominique Foxworth. He was pretty much saying that's essentially how he plays. He doesn't see his first option. He scrambles. He tries to just throw the ball away. It was just awkward, man. And I don't know. That was just a weird press conference. Because again, it didn't have to be that long. You didn't have to say any of that. You could have just, yeah, it's true. But that was obviously before I got to this organization. I love this organization now. I want to be a Bear. I am a Bear, and I want to keep it moving. That's it. That's the thing. Who is advising you, bro? Because that was Jesus Christ. Speaking of advising, now let's get to decision making. If you want a snapshot of how important decision making is for a career, look at Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill was on the Kansas City Chiefs. When on the Kansas City Chiefs, was widely regarded as one of, if not the best wide receivers in the league. Win Super Bowl. Wanted to get his money. Nothing wrong with that. I think that there was about a $5 or $6 million discrepancy between the money he wanted compared to what the Chiefs were willing to give him. And he said, you know what? I'm going to go to Miami. And ever since that moment, outside of 1 year where they broke a bunch of records, every single time Tyreek Hill has a chance to tell you he's upset or he's not happy with the organization, he does not miss a moment. At all. And again, man, th- that's that's kind of where my sympathy radar stops. I get it. You went to a quarterback that has had trouble staying healthy ever since college, or actually ever since high school. You're going to an organization that hasn't really won anything since that perfect season. You're going to an organization, or I'm sorry, you're leaving an organization that has Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid. This comes off of, I think it was on somebody's stream or somebody's video, and he was essentially saying that there was multiple times where he wanted to punch Mike McDaniels, who was the coach of the team, because they're not throwing him the ball enough. Let's put into perspective. Tua missed most of the season due to injury again, concussions. Like, who did you think was about to throw you the ball, bro? Again, I want everyone to be at their best caliber. I want everyone to be happy. I want everyone to be comfortable with where they are. In the same breath, all of these decisions are decisions that you made. So, shocker. You go from Patrick Mahomes to Tua Tagovailoa, and you're not as productive as you think you should be. I know you had groundbreaking. You almost had a 2,000-yard season, but that was also stopped short because you were hurt. So it's like you can't complain about the situation that you're in. And on top of that, it's not like the Dolphins aren't trying to get him the ball. He is the best offensive weapon for the team. It's just when your quarterback is hurt and teams like, you know. But again, you left a perennial powerhouse, and you left Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Arrowhead and Travis Kelce. Like, you left that for Miami, who I can't tell you the last time they won a playoff game. Again, you're going to make your money, bro. But in making your money, you have to understand that these are the decisions that you make come with consequences. You should have known, you may not be as successful as you were, but you'll be richer, but you're not going to be as successful because I know he tried to push the two is better than Patrick. Chill out. But good luck. But he finds every opportunity to essentially crap on the organization that you chose, might I add. It's not like they traded him to an organization he didn't want to go to. He orchestrated the trade. And shout out to the Chiefs. They allowed him to orchestrate his own trade. And he did. So this is where he wanted to go. This was where they were going to pay him the most, I guess. So now you're complaining at every step. It seems like every single opportunity. I'm just like, bro, what do you want? I don't know, man. Lastly, before we go, I said this before, and I'll say this again. A team will put up with a lot if the production supersedes the headache. Stefon Diggs has been in the news a lot this offseason. many of those headlines are not because of football. I will admit, none of them is criminal. Like I don't think anytime I hear about Stefon Diggs, it's nothing criminal. So I'm not going to say it's on that. He's not doing anything illegal. But you came from an organization that needed you. In fact, let's map out Stefon Diggs' NFL career for a second. You go from Minnesota. You were the number one option. Obviously, you didn't have the quarterback to back, even though you had the Minneapolis Miracle, and that doesn't work out. You force your way out. You go to Buffalo. You're paired with Josh Allen. Multiple playoffs. There's also been multiple playoff duds from you. Nobody is questioning your talent. Nobody is questioning that you are a number one receiver. But there have been many situations where you have not performed to the best of your ability. You start getting a little loud in your criticism with your organization, with your teammates. You then go to Houston, a young, deep team, young quarterback, C.J. Stroud, incredible weapons around you, Tank Dell, Nico Harris. You get hurt. Nico Collins, I'm sorry, but you get hurt. That doesn't work out, but you get hurt. Now you're on the New England Patriots, a team that is known for not dealing with nonsense, like at all. They were hesitant in bringing on somebody like Cam Newton, not because he brings nonsense, but because his stature brings on a lot of unwanted attention to the organization. But they brought him on. They also brought on Antonio Brown because Tom Brady wanted that. But they bring you on, Stefon Diggs. Mind you, this is the fourth place that you're on now. 3 of those you left because either you were unhappy or you were unhappy due to money, which is why you're in New England. I'm not saying... I'll say this. It's no coincidence that Mike Vrabel, who is the new head coach for the New England Patriots, comes out and says, or is asked, and he essentially says, yeah, I've seen all the headlines about Stefon Diggs this offseason. Again, none of them are really, most of them are, the only headline I saw about Stefon Diggs about football was he signed with the Patriots. All I'm saying is you're dealing with an organization that ain't got time for none of that, bro. Again, nothing that he has done off the field, to my knowledge, has been illegal. And I'm sure he's been in the gym. The fact that he's able to move and do all that after an ACL he's obviously been in the gym, so I'm not saying he's not working out. But what I'm saying is, like a lot of former athletes, your off the field name is starting to get bigger than your on the field name, and you're at the absolute worst organization for that. That's all I'm saying. And there you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve, joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. I appreciate all you guys. Tell a friend to tell a friend if they're not subscribed. Hey, please subscribe. It means a lot. Also, for my DSP listeners, please, that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. Please follow. Please subscribe. It means a lot. No platform is bigger than the other. I'm trying to grow just exponentially, so I can't do it without you guys. So share, subscribe, follow. It means a lot. Also, my social media, TikTok, Instagram. Please follow. That's probably the quickest way to get to me. If you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth. It just means you're listening to me. You have opinions that I would love to hear. And again, I don't mind going back and forth. I don't mind debating. Just keep it respectful. Leave in the comment. We'll talk about it. Again, until next time, much love.